War Prime Thexlar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue-green world of Kythera turn slowly below. His red eyes showed satisfaction as he reviewed the attack plan. It was simple and effective, just like the New Haven operation 3 years ago. First the schools and hospitals, then the residential areas, then whatever was left. The Kythera were a peaceful species that had never hurt anyone. They traded music and art across the galaxy and raised their children to sing before they could walk. This made them perfect targets for a demonstration of Zephyrian power. The galaxy needed regular reminders of who was in charge. "All ships report ready, War Prime," announced his tactical officer, a nervous creature with 6 eyes and too many arms. "Weapons are charged and targets are locked. We can begin the bombardment on your command." Thexlar nodded slowly. He enjoyed this moment before the killing began, the moment when an entire species realized they were about to die and could do nothing to stop it. Fear was the most useful tool in the galaxy, and fear required examples. "Begin with the primary school in the capital city," he ordered. "Make sure the communication channels are open so their screams reach the other worlds." The tactical officer's claws moved across his control panel. "Firing in 10 seconds, War Prime." Thexlar watched the main screen, waiting for the bright flash that would announce the beginning of another successful terror campaign. 5 seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nothing happened. "Status report," Thexlar demanded. The tactical officer's 6 eyes moved frantically between his displays. "I do not understand, War Prime. The weapons show ready status, but they are not firing. All systems appear normal, but what? But the triggers are not responding. It is as if something is blocking the firing sequence." Across the fleet, 46 other ship commanders were reporting the same problem. Their weapons were charged and ready. Their targeting systems were locked on civilian areas, but nothing would fire. The Zephyrians had never encountered this type of failure before. Thexlar was about to order an investigation when his bridge viewports exploded inward. Glass and metal flew everywhere as the atmosphere rushed out into space. Emergency systems activated, sealing the breach, but not before something impossible happened. Human soldiers appeared on his bridge. They wore black armor that seemed to absorb light. Their faces were hidden behind helmets that reflected the bridge lights like dark mirrors. They moved with the smooth confidence of predators who had found their prey. Leading them was a man whose armor bore the insignia of a human. Colonel Kevin Hayes had lost his wife and 2 daughters on New Haven. He had spent 3 years learning everything about Zephyrian ship design, tactical doctrine, and command structure. He had studied their language until he spoke it better than most aliens. He had practiced this moment in his dreams every night. "Surprise," he said in perfect Zephyrian before opening fire. The bridge erupted in chaos. Zephyrian officers tried to reach their weapons, but the humans were faster. They had appeared in perfect positions, each soldier covering specific targets. Within 30 seconds, every Zephyrian on the bridge was either dead or wounded. Thexlar himself was on his knees, gray blood flowing from wounds in his arms and legs. Colonel Hayes stood over him, his weapon aimed at the War Prime's head. "You remember New Haven?" Hayes asked quietly. 2 million humans. You killed the children first because you wanted to cause maximum pain." Thexlar's red eyes showed confusion and fear. "How did you get aboard my ship?" "Our shields were raised, our defenses were active." "Your defenses were designed to stop ships and energy weapons," Hayes replied. "They were not designed to stop people who can step through folded space. We have been inside your fleet for hours waiting for the right moment." Across 47 ships, the same scene was playing out. Human strike teams had materialized in engine rooms, weapon bays, command centers, and communication hubs. The Zephyrian crews, who had ruled through fear for centuries, discovered that their weapons were useless against enemies who appeared from nowhere. On the Zephyrian homeworld, War Marshal Drexquan was enjoying his morning meal when urgent communications started flooding in from across the Empire. Fleet commanders were screaming about human attacks, about soldiers appearing inside sealed ships, about weapons that would not fire. "Impossible," Drexquan muttered, his forearms working frantically at his communication console. "Humans are a broken species. They signed the surrender treaty. They have been paying tribute for 3 years." His aide, a younger officer with bright yellow scales, looked up from his own console with terror in his eyes. "War Marshal, we are receiving reports from 17 different star systems. Human forces are attacking our installations everywhere. They are not just fighting our military units. They are systematically destroying every symbol of our authority. Drexaquan's blood turned cold. What do you mean every symbol? The victory monuments, War Marshal. The statues commemorating our great conquests. The memorial celebrating New Haven's destruction. They are blowing them all up. Captain, Tony Mitchell stood in the ruins of the Zephyrian. Memorial to their great victory at New Haven. The massive statue had depicted Zephyrian warriors standing over broken human ships while alien children played safely in the background. The inscription had read, "To the mercy of the strong over the weak." Now it was rubble. Mitchell's demolition team finished checking the blast site to make sure nothing remained. Every piece of the memorial had been reduced to dust and scattered to the winds. Where it had stood, Mitchell placed a single human flag and a plaque with 2 million names. "This is for Sarah," he said quietly, thinking of his daughter who had been 8 years old when the Zephyrian ships arrived at New Haven, and for everyone who thought mercy and justice were the same thing. The explosion had lit up the night sky of the Zephyrian capital, visible from orbit where Admiral Lisa Carter watched from the bridge of the UES Retribution. The ship had been hidden in Earth's orbital shipyards for 3 years, disguised as a civilian construction project. Now it hung over the Zephyrian homeworld like a sword of justice. Phase 1 complete, Carter reported to Jake Morrison through encrypted channels. Every major Zephyrian fleet has been neutralized. Their weapons are disabled, their command structure is broken, and their communications are under our control. Casualties? Morrison asked. Minimal. Our people knew exactly where to hit and how to avoid unnecessary killing. We are soldiers, not murderers. And the Kythera? Safe, the bombardment never began. Zephyrian ships are drifting powerless in orbit while our medical teams treat their wounded. The Kythera are sending us songs of gratitude. Morrison's voice carried satisfaction. What about their homeworld defenses? What defenses? Carter smiled grimly. They never expected anyone to attack them directly. Their entire military doctrine was based on intimidating weaker species. They have no experience fighting equals. On the planet below, Captain Steve Coleman led his unit through the halls of the Zephyrian High Command. The aliens had built their headquarters to intimidate visitors with its massive size and dark architecture. Every wall was covered with images of conquered species and destroyed worlds. Coleman's team was systematically removing those images and replacing them with something else. Pictures of the species the Zephyrians had oppressed, images of the worlds they had destroyed, names of the innocent people who had died for Zephyrian glory. "Sir," one of his soldiers called out, "we found their prisoner records. There are slave camps on 43 worlds, holding representatives from dozens of species. Send the coordinates to Admiral Carter," Coleman ordered. "Tell her we need liberation teams at every location. No one stays in chains while we have the power to free them." The soldier nodded and activated his communicator. Within minutes, human ships were departing for every slave world in Zephyrian space. The aliens had thought their prisoners were safely hidden on remote planets where no one would look for them. They had not considered that humans might have been watching and waiting for the right moment to act. Commander Lisa Parker led the assault on the largest prison world. Her ship, the UES Mercy, had been disguised as a cargo hauler for 2 years while she mapped every guard post and security system. Now she walked through corridors full of freed slaves, aliens from dozens of species who had been worked nearly to death in Zephyrian mines. "How long were you imprisoned here?" she asked an elderly alien whose blue fur was matted with years of neglect. 7 cycles, the creature replied in broken standard. "My family, my world, all gone. Zephyrian said we were too weak to deserve freedom." Parker handed him a medical kit and a blanket. "You are free now. We will take you anywhere you want to go." The alien's eyes filled with tears. "You are human, yes? The species that signed the surrender treaty?" "We signed a paper," Parker corrected. "But we never surrendered. We just waited for the right time to remind the galaxy that mercy and weakness are not the same thing." All across Zephyrian space, the same scenes were playing out. Human forces appeared where they were least expected, struck with surgical precision and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. They did not target civilians. They did not commit atrocities. They simply dismantled the infrastructure of oppression one piece at a time. The Galactic Council emergency session was chaos. Representatives from dozens of species shouted accusations and demands while Ambassador Jake Morrison sat quietly in humanity's chair. His hands were folded peacefully on the table, but his eyes held the cold satisfaction of a man who had waited 3 years for this moment. The great chamber had been built to inspire awe and respect. Massive pillars reached toward a dome that showed the stars of every member world. Each species had their own section, arranged by age and importance in the galactic community. Humanity's section had always been small and placed far from the center. Today, every eye in the room was focused on the human ambassador. Council Prime Yathara slammed her ceremonial gavel repeatedly, but the noise continued. The ancient being had mediated galactic conflicts for over 2 centuries, but she had never seen anything like this. Representatives were screaming in languages she had never heard, making demands that violated every principle of civilized discourse. "Order!" she shouted, her voice amplified by the chamber's speakers. "This council will have order." Slowly, the noise died down. The Zephyrian delegation, now much smaller than it had been a week ago, sat in stunned silence. Sub-Marshal Kexathara was their highest-ranking survivor, and he looked like he had not slept in days. His gray scales were pale and his red eyes showed the kind of fear that came from watching an empire collapse in 24 hours. "Ambassador Morrison," Yathara said in her most formal voice, "the humans must cease these attacks immediately. The Council demands an explanation for this unprovoked aggression against a member species." Jake looked up slowly, his expression peaceful. "Unprovoked?" he asked quietly. "Prime, I believe your memory may be failing you. Shall I remind you of what provoked us?" He stood and activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. The image showed New Haven Colony as it had been 3 years ago. Green parks where children played, schools full of young humans learning about the galaxy, hospitals where human doctors treated patients from dozens of species. Then the image changed to show what the Zephyrians had left behind. Melted glass and twisted metal, empty playgrounds and broken dreams, 2 million graves that had been dug in the space of 3 days. "This is what provoked us," Jake said simply. "The systematic murder of our civilians, the deliberate targeting of our children, the broadcast of their screams across subspace so we would all hear them die." Submarshal Kexthera rose from his seat, his forearms shaking with anger. "You dare speak of children, human? Your species has committed acts of terrorism across half the galaxy. You have violated every law of civilized warfare." Jake turned to face him directly. "Civilized warfare?" His voice remained level, but ice crept into his tone. "Was it civilized when you vaporized New Haven's schools first to maximize psychological impact? Was it civilized when you broadcast the screams across subspace so we would all hear our children die? Tell me, Submarshal, what civilization teaches that the murder of innocents is an acceptable military tactic?" The chamber fell silent. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They all remembered New Haven, but they had chosen to call it a necessary demonstration, rather than what it really was. The humans signed a surrender treaty, Kexathara insisted. They accepted the terms of peace. They have no right to break that agreement. Jake smiled, and for the first time it reached his eyes. "We honored every term of that treaty, Submarshal. We withdrew from the 3 star systems you demanded. We paid the tribute you required. We made no aggressive moves against Zephyrian territory. Then explain your attacks." "Simple. You broke the treaty first." Jake activated another section of his display. This one showed Zephyrian communications from the past 6 months, plans for the Kithera operation, discussion of which civilian targets would cause the most terror, detailed analysis of how to maximize suffering while minimizing military resistance. The treaty contained a clause. Jake continued. Article 7, Section 3. Both parties agree to refrain from acts of aggression against civilian populations of any species. You violated that clause the moment you decided to repeat New Haven with the Kithera. Council Prime Yathara tried to restore order. Surely negotiations can resolve this. Terms must be discussed. Compromises must be reached. There were terms, Jake replied without looking away from the Zephyrian delegation. You broke them when you decided to murder more innocents. The treaty is void, and so is any obligation we had to show mercy. He activated the final section of his display. This showed real-time footage from across former Zephyrian space. Human forces were not just winning battles. They were systematically dismantling the infrastructure of oppression. Slave camps were being liberated. Prison worlds were being evacuated. Species that had been ground under Zephyrian rule for generations were seeing their chains broken. "We do not make war on children," Jake said, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "We do not target civilians. We do not commit genocide for convenience. But we also do not forgive the murder of our families, and we do not show mercy to those who see kindness as weakness. The display zoomed in on specific operations. Major Steve Coleman was leading former slaves away from a mining colony, giving them medical care and transport to safety. Commander Lisa Parker was distributing food and medicine to aliens who had been starved for years. Captain Tony Mitchell was helping refugees contact families they had not seen in decades. Look at what your Zephyrian friends built, Jake continued. 43 slave worlds, 17 prison colonies, 6 extermination camps, all hidden where the council would not look, all filled with people whose only crime was being too weak to defend themselves. Several council members were staring at the images in shock. They had known the Zephyrians were harsh, but they had not known about the systematic brutality. They had not wanted to know. The humans must be stopped, Kexthera insisted desperately. They are destroying the natural order. The strong have always ruled the weak. This is how the galaxy maintains stability. Jake turned to face the entire council. Is that the natural order you want to maintain? One where strength means the right to murder children? Where power means the right to enslave entire species? Where peace means accepting that innocents will die for the entertainment of their betters? He gestured to the images still playing on the display. Every person we have freed was captured because they were too gentle to fight back. Every world we have liberated was conquered because its people trusted in galactic law to protect them. Every child who died on New Haven believed that the council would ensure their safety. The chamber was completely silent now. Representatives who had been shouting minutes before could not meet Jake's eyes. You want to know what human civilization teaches? Jake asked. It teaches that the strong protect the weak, not prey upon them. It teaches that mercy is a gift given freely, not a weakness to be exploited. It teaches that some things are worth fighting for even when the odds seem impossible. He began walking toward the exit. The Zephyrian Empire is finished. Their fleets are disabled. Their leaders are captured and their slaves are free. The galaxy can either accept this new reality or try to stop us. But understand this. He paused at the chamber door and looked back one final time. Humanity evolved on a death world. We survived ice ages and meteor strikes and predators that could kill us with a single bite. We learned to work together because cooperation was the only way to stay alive. We developed technology because our environment demanded innovation. We became warriors because our planet taught us that sometimes violence is the only answer to violence. You think we are weak because we chose mercy over vengeance for 3 years. You think our willingness to negotiate makes us soft. You are wrong. We are the only species in the galaxy that chose to stay on a world that tries to kill us every day. We are the only species that looks at a dangerous situation and sees an opportunity to grow stronger. Every other race in this council evolved on safe worlds with gentle weather and friendly animals. You think strength means having bigger weapons or more ships. You do not understand that real strength comes from surviving on a world where everything wants you dead and choosing to not only survive, but thrive. Jake opened the chamber door. The Zephyrians wanted to teach us our place in the galactic order. They wanted to show us that humans are too weak to matter. Consider that lesson complete. As he walked away, his final words echoed through the chamber. We remember everything. Every kindness, every cruelty, every act of mercy, and every act of murder. The galaxy is about to learn that humanity does not forget and does not forgive those who harm innocents. But we also do not abandon those who need protection. Behind him, the council sat in stunned silence. They had spent decades believing that peace meant accepting injustice. They had convinced themselves that stability was more important than freedom. They had watched the strong prey upon the weak and called it the natural order. Now they were discovering that there was another natural order, one where the strong protected the weak, one where mercy was earned through justice, one where peace came not from accepting oppression, but from making oppression impossible. Sub-Marshal Kexthera stared at the empty doorway where the human ambassador had been. Admiral Lisa Carter knelt in her garden, pulling weeds from around the tomato plants. Her hands were dirty and her hair was gray, just like any other retired human. The aliens who watched her house saw exactly what they expected to see. An old woman who had given up fighting and now spent her days growing vegetables. They could not see the weapons hidden under the flower beds. They did not know that the greenhouse had a secret basement full of communication equipment. They had no idea that every plant in her garden had been chosen for a specific reason, and that reason had nothing to do with food. The signal had come 2 hours ago. Jake Morrison's message about children in danger. had reached her through channels that did not exist on any official records. Now she waited for her team to arrive. They would come one by one, using transport methods that the aliens had never learned to detect. Captain Ryan Bell appeared first, stepping out of what looked like empty air near the roses. The transport technology was Dr. Amanda Price's greatest achievement, but the galaxy thought it was impossible. Humans had been called crazy for trying to move matter through folded space. The aliens said it could not be done safely. They were wrong about that, just like they were wrong about so many other things. Ryan looked older than his 35 years. 3 years of pretending to be a broken man had left marks on his face, but his eyes were sharp and his hands were steady. He had spent those years working on alien ships, learning their weaknesses, mapping their defenses. Every day of humiliation had been worth it for this moment. The Zephyrians hit Kythera 6 hours ago, he said without greeting. Same pattern as New Haven. Civilian targets first, maximum terror. The Council is calling it a justified response to terrorist activities. Lisa stood up and brushed dirt from her hands. How many ships? 47 in the first wave. Standard intimidation fleet. They want to scare the Kythera into surrender before the main attack. Perfect. Lisa walked to her greenhouse and pressed her hand against what looked like a normal wall. A hidden panel slid open, revealing a room full of screens and controls. Amanda should be here soon. Her transport takes longer because she has to bring the equipment. Ryan followed her into the secret room. The walls were covered with star maps that showed red dots and blue dots scattered across the galaxy. The red dots were Zephyrian positions. The blue dots were something the enemy had never suspected. How many assets do we have in place? Ryan asked. 347 teams spread across 200 systems. Lisa's voice was calm, but Ryan could hear the satisfaction underneath. Every merchant ship that left Earth in the past 3 years carried more than cargo. Every refugee convoy included people who were not really refugees. Every surrender included soldiers who were not really surrendering. Dr. Amanda Price materialized near the wall, carrying a device that hummed with barely contained energy. She was young, maybe 28, with bright eyes and steady hands. The aliens thought she was just another human scientist who had been properly defeated. They let her teach their children because they believed humans were naturally peaceful. They had never seen Amanda's real work. The tunneling gates are ready, she said, setting her device on the central table. We can have strike teams anywhere in the galaxy in under 6 minutes. The Zephyrians will not know what hit them. Lisa activated the main display. The galaxy appeared in 3 dimensions, showing ship movements and communication patterns in real time. Every Zephyrian vessel was tracked. Every command center was mapped. Every leader was located. Show me the Kythera attack, Lisa said. The display zoomed in on a blue-green world where the Kythera lived. Zephyrian ships hung in orbit like ugly metal spiders. Energy readings showed they were charging their main weapons. Soon they would start firing on the cities below. They are following the New Haven pattern exactly, Amanda said. Schools and hospitals first, then civilian housing, then infrastructure. They want to break the spirit before they break the body. Ryan's hands clenched into fists. How long do we have? 4 hours before they start the bombardment, Lisa replied. More than enough time. She turned to face both of them. Are you ready to remind the galaxy why Earth is classified as a death world? Amanda smiled. It was not a nice smile. The Zephyrians spent 3 years telling everyone that humans are weak because we live on a dangerous planet. They think our gravity is too high and our weather is too violent and our animals are too aggressive. They think we are victims of our environment, Ryan added. They do not understand that we are products of it, Lisa nodded. Every species in the galaxy evolved on safe worlds with gentle weather and friendly animals. They think strength means having bigger weapons or more ships. They do not understand that real strength comes from surviving on a world that tries to kill you every day. The display changed to show Earth. From space, it looked beautiful and peaceful. Blue oceans and white clouds and green continents. The aliens saw a garden world that happened to have harsh conditions. They did not see what humans saw. They look at our storms and see destruction, Lisa said. We look at our storms and see power that can be used. They look at our earthquakes and see chaos. We look at our earthquakes and see how the planet rebuilds itself. They look at our predators and see death. We look at our predators and see teachers. Every human child learns to survive things that would kill adult aliens, Amanda added. We think their safe worlds made them soft. They think our dangerous world made us stupid. We are about to show them which one of us is right. Lisa walked to another panel and entered a long code. Across the galaxy, humans who had been pretending to be defeated suddenly received new orders. Merchant captains who had been hauling cargo for alien masters revealed hidden weapons. Refugees who had been cleaning alien toilets pulled guns from secret compartments. Workers who had been fixing alien machines turned those machines into bombs. Signal all Shepherd units, Lisa commanded. Tell them the flock is in danger. Time to remind the galaxy why wolves fear the shepherd's dog. The responses came back quickly. 347 teams confirmed they were ready. Each team had between 5 and 20 members. Each member had spent 3 years learning alien weaknesses. Each team was positioned to strike at critical targets. Shepherd 1 reports ready from the Zephyrian capital. Ryan read from the communications panel. Shepherd 12 is in position at their main shipyard. Shepherd 23 has infiltrated their high command. How did we get people into their high command? Amanda asked. Lisa smiled. The Zephyrians use slave labor for everything they consider beneath them. Cleaning, cooking, maintenance, security. They never look at the faces of the people who serve them. They certainly never run background checks on slaves. So our people have been listening to their plans for 3 years? Better than that. Our people have been making their plans for 3 years. Every major Zephyrian decision in the past 18 months was influenced by human slaves who knew exactly what to suggest. The main display updated again, showing the Zephyrian fleet approaching Kythera. The alien ships moved in perfect formation, confident in their strength. They had done this before. They knew how easy it was to break a peaceful species. They are going to fire on the schools first, Ryan said, watching the tactical display. Just like they did on New Haven. No, Lisa replied. They are going to try to fire on the schools first. But their weapons are not going to work. Amanda held up her device. Quantum tunneling works both ways. We can send soldiers through space instantly, but we can also send other things. Small things. Things that aliens would not notice until it was too late. Their ships have been sabotaged. Their ships have been improved, Lisa said. Every weapon system now has a small human addition. A tiny device that will activate when we send the right signal. The Zephyrians will aim at children and pull the trigger, but nothing will happen. And then our soldiers will appear on their bridges and show. Then what happens when you threaten human families? The countdown timer showed 3 hours and 47 minutes until the bombardment was scheduled to begin. But the bombardment would never happen. Instead, the galaxy was about to witness something it had never seen before. Humans had spent 3 years pretending to be broken. They had signed treaties and paid tributes and bowed their heads in submission. They had let the aliens believe that mercy and defeat were the same thing, but humans remembered everything. They remembered every insult and every humiliation. They remembered every dead child and every broken family. Most of all, they remembered that mercy was a choice, not a weakness. The Zephyrians thought they had tamed the humans. They thought the peace treaty had made them safe from retaliation. They believed their own propaganda about human weakness and alien superiority. They were about to learn the most important lesson in the galaxy. Never threaten the children of a species that evolved on a death world. Never mistake mercy for fear. And never ever believe that humans forget or forgive. The war was about to begin, but this time it would be fought on human terms. Jake Morrison stood in the big white room where aliens from across the galaxy made important decisions. His hands were steady, but his heart was angry. 3 years had passed since the day that changed everything for humans. 3 years since the Zephyrian Empire decided to show the galaxy how strong they were by killing millions of innocent people on New Haven Colony. The peace treaty sat on the table between him and the alien leaders. Jake had signed it with a pen, but he remembered every word. Humans had to give up 3 star systems. Humans had to send food and metals to the Zephyrians every month. Humans had to promise never to fight back. The galaxy called this mercy. Jake called it something else. War Prime Thexler sat across from him. The alien was tall and covered in gray scales. His red eyes showed no sadness for what his people had done. To him, humans were just another weak race that needed to learn their place. He did not know that Jake Morrison had a sister on New Haven. He did not know that Jake had heard her scream across the communication channels when the Zephyrian ships started firing. The other aliens in the room talked about peace and order. They spoke about how wise the Zephyrians were to show mercy to Earth itself. They did not talk about the children who died first in the attack. They did not mention that the Zephyrians had aimed for the schools and hospitals before hitting the military bases. They pretended that killing 2 million civilians was somehow a fair warning. Jake listened to their words and said nothing. He had learned to keep his face calm during these meetings. The aliens thought humans were emotional and stupid. They thought humans would cry and beg and give up when things got hard. They were wrong about many things, but Jake let them think what they wanted. Ambassador Yathara from the council spoke in her slow, careful voice. She was old even by alien standards, and she believed that talking could solve any problem. She looked at Jake with something that might have been pity. "The peace holds strong," she said. "Humanity has shown wisdom in accepting the new order. The Zephyrian Empire has been most generous in allowing Earth to remain free." Jake nodded and smiled. It was not a real smile, but the aliens could not tell the difference. "We are grateful for Zephyrian mercy," he said. The words tasted like poison, but he had practiced saying them many times. War Prime Thexlar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your species learns quickly when properly taught. Perhaps other young races will follow your example and accept their place without unnecessary bloodshed." The room went quiet. Jake felt something cold move through his chest. Other young races. Other colonies full of families and children. Other worlds that might face what New Haven had faced. "Are there problems with other species?" Jake asked in his most innocent voice. "Nothing that cannot be handled," Thexlar replied. "The Kithera have been making trouble in the outer systems. Some of the younger council members think they need the same lesson we gave your people." Jake's hand stayed still on the table, but inside his mind, alarms were screaming. The Kithera were peaceful traders who had never hurt anyone. They had fuzzy blue fur and big eyes, and they loved music. Their children learned to sing before they learned to walk. If the Zephyrians went after them, it would be another massacre. "I see," Jake said quietly. "I hope wisdom prevails." The meeting ended with more talk about peace and cooperation. The aliens left one by one until only Jake remained in the White Room. He sat alone for a long time, thinking about his sister Maria, who had been a teacher on New Haven. She had loved children from every species in the galaxy. She would have been heartbroken to know that more innocent people might die. Jake pulled out a small communication device that looked like a normal data pad. He typed a short message and sent it to an address that did not officially exist. The message had only 7 words, but they would change everything. "The children are in danger again." On Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter was working in her garden when the message arrived. She was retired now, or so everyone believed. Her official records said she spent her days growing flowers and reading old books. The galaxy thought she was just another broken human who had given up fighting. They were wrong about that too. Carter read the message twice, then deleted it. She walked to her greenhouse where tomatoes grew in neat rows. Behind the tomatoes, hidden where no one would look, was a communication panel that connected to networks the aliens had never found. She pressed a single button and waited. Across the galaxy, in places the enemy did not watch, other humans received a different message. It had no words, just a tone that meant, "Wake up." People who had been pretending to be farmers and merchants and refugees suddenly remembered who they really were. Captain Ryan. Bell was fixing engines on a freight ship when his communicator buzzed. He looked at the signal and smiled for the first time in months. His sister had died on New Haven too. Her name was Susan, and she had been a nurse. The Zephyrians had bombed the hospital where she worked because they wanted to hurt as many people as possible. Ryan had spent 3 years pretending to be just another broken human. He had taken orders from alien bosses and kept his mouth shut when they insulted his species. He had watched them celebrate the anniversary of New Haven's destruction. But every night he had practiced with weapons they did not know he had. Dr. Amanda Price was teaching alien children about human science when her device vibrated. She smiled at her students and told them class was over early today. They ran away laughing, not knowing that their teacher was about to help change the galaxy forever. Amanda had been working on secret projects for 3 years. Projects that the peace treaty said humans could never build. Projects that could move soldiers across space faster than anyone thought possible. The aliens had forbidden this technology because they said it was too dangerous. They were right about that, but not in the way they thought. All across the galaxy, humans who had been waiting received the same signal. They had jobs on alien worlds and alien ships. They fixed things and cleaned things and did the work that aliens thought was beneath them. But they had also been watching and learning and preparing. The Zephyrians thought they had broken humanity's spirit. They thought the peace treaty had made humans into pets who would never bite their masters. They believed that showing mercy to Earth had bought them eternal gratitude and obedience. They were about to learn the difference between mercy and forgiveness. They were about to discover that humans remembered everything, even when they pretended to forget. Most importantly, they were about to find out why Earth was the only planet in the galaxy that nobody else wanted to live on. Jake Morrison walked out of the council building and looked up at the alien sky. Somewhere out there, innocent people were about to die unless someone stopped it. The galaxy had rules about these things, but the rules only worked when everyone followed them. When someone decided that murder was acceptable, the rules became useless. Humanity had followed the rules for 3 years. They had been good and peaceful and obedient. They had shown mercy to enemies who deserved none. But mercy had limits, and those limits had just been reached. The war was about to begin again, but this time, the humans would not be surprised. 6 months after the reckoning began, War Prime Thexlar knelt in chains before a human tribunal on the liberated world of Kythera. The great hall where he now faced judgment had once been a school where Kythera children learned to sing. The Zephyrians had planned to destroy it first, to break the spirit of the peaceful species before the real killing began. Instead, it had become a courtroom where the galaxy's most powerful war criminal would face the consequences of his actions. Judge Patricia Wells sat behind a simple wooden desk, wearing the black robes of human justice. She had been a colony administrator on New Haven, responsible for managing the schools and hospitals that the Zephyrians had targeted first. She had lost her husband, her 3 children, and everyone she had ever loved in the space of 6 hours. For 3 years, she had prepared for this moment. The courtroom was filled with representatives from dozens of species. Former slaves who had been freed from Zephyrian camps sat next to diplomats from the Galactic Council. Kythera families whose children had been saved from bombardment watched quietly as justice finally arrived. War Prime Thexlar of the former Zephyrian Empire, Judge Wells read from a document that contained 3 years of careful investigation. You stand accused of crimes against not just humanity, but against every principle of civilized society. The list of charges took 4 hours to read completely. Genocide against 17 different species, slavery involving over 2 million sentient beings, torture, mass murder, the systematic destruction of civilian populations across dozens of worlds. Every crime had been documented by human operatives who had spent years gathering evidence. You are charged with the New Haven massacre, in which 2 million humans died. You are charged with the planned Kythera genocide, which was prevented only by human intervention. You are charged with maintaining slave camps on 43 worlds. You are charged with operating extermination facilities on 6 planets. Judge Wells continued reading as Thexlar knelt in his chains. The once proud War Prime had aged decades in the past 6 months. His gray scales had turned almost white, and his red eyes showed the hollow stare of someone who had watched his entire world collapse. You are charged with the murder of children on 12 worlds, the destruction of hospitals on 37 planets, and the systematic use of terror as a weapon of war. The evidence against you includes your own recorded communications, testimony from survivors, and documentation recovered from your command centers. The evidence was overwhelming. Human intelligence operatives had been recording Zephyrian communications for 3 years. Every order Thexlar had given, every atrocity he had planned, every innocent life he had destroyed, had been carefully documented and preserved. How do you answer these charges? Judge Wells asked. Thexlar looked up with desperate hope in his red eyes. He had been expecting this moment for months, and he had prepared his final argument. I invoke the right of mercy, he said in a voice that cracked with fear. By galactic law, I claim the protection of civilized justice. I demand the consideration traditionally shown to defeated enemies. The courtroom fell silent. Every species in the galaxy recognized the legal principle he was invoking. Defeated enemies were traditionally shown mercy, even war criminals. It was one of the oldest laws in the Galactic Council. Judge Wells looked down at him for a long moment. Mercy? She asked quietly. You want mercy? She gestured to the gallery, which was filled with survivors from dozens of species that had suffered under Zephyrian rule. Look around you, War Prime. See the faces of those whose mercy you ignored. See the children who grew up in your slave camps. See the parents who watched their families die for your entertainment. An elderly Kithera rose from the front row. His blue fur was streaked with white, and his large eyes showed the kind of pain that never fully heals. My grandchildren were in the school you planned to destroy, he said in a voice barely above a whisper. They were learning a song about peace between species when your ships arrived. A human woman stood up next to him. My daughter was a teacher on New Haven. She was 24 years old and had just gotten married. Your soldiers killed her husband first so she would suffer more before she died. More survivors rose one by one. Aliens from species that most of the galaxy had forgotten. People whose worlds had been destroyed so completely that they existed now only in memory. Children who had been born in slavery and had never seen the worlds their parents had lost. Each one told their story. Each one spoke of family members who had died screaming. Each one described the mercy they had begged for and never received. Judge Wells listened to every word. When the last survivor finished speaking, she turned back to Thexlar. You are correct about one thing, she said. Galactic law does provide for mercy. The law states that defeated enemies may request merciful treatment based on their conduct during war and their willingness to accept responsibility for their actions. Hope flickered in Thexlar's eyes. However, the judge continued, mercy is not automatic. It must be earned through genuine remorse, acceptance of responsibility, and demonstrated commitment to making amends for past actions. She held up a datapad containing transcripts of his interrogation sessions. During 6 months of questioning, you have shown no remorse for your actions. You have claimed that every atrocity was justified. You have insisted that the strong have the right to prey upon the weak. You have expressed regret only for being caught, not for the suffering you caused. I was following orders, Thexlar said desperately. I was serving my empire's interests. Every species does what it must to survive. Every species? Judge Wells activated a holographic display showing images from the past 6 months. Human soldiers were helping rebuild destroyed cities. Human doctors were treating former slaves. Human teachers were working with alien children whose parents had been murdered. These are also humans serving their species' interests, she said. But they chose to serve by protecting the weak rather than exploiting them. They chose to build rather than destroy. They chose to heal rather than hurt. The display changed to show statistics from the liberated worlds. Crime rates had dropped to almost zero. Productivity had increased as former slaves worked willingly for fair wages. Children who had never known safety were learning to play and laugh again. This is what human civilization looks like when we are free to act according to our values. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We build homes for the homeless. We feed the hungry. We heal the sick. We teach children to think for themselves. She turned back to Thexlar. Your civilization chose a different path. You built slave camps instead of schools. You created fear instead of hope. You destroyed beauty instead of creating it. You murdered children instead of nurturing them. The strong rule the weak, Thexlar insisted. This is the natural order. This is how the galaxy has always worked. No, Judge Wells replied firmly. That is how the galaxy worked when people like you were in charge. But you are not in charge anymore. She stood and looked around the courtroom. Humanity has assumed responsibility for maintaining order in this sector of space. We have freed your slaves, dismantled your camps, and captured your war criminals. The galaxy can either accept this new reality or try to stop us. But understand this clearly. We are not the Zephyrian Empire. We do not rule through fear. We do not profit from slavery. We do not murder children to prove our strength. We protect those who need protection because that is what civilized beings do. She looked down at Thexlar one final time. You asked for mercy, War Prime. Mercy is what kept us from destroying your homeworld in retaliation for New Haven. Mercy is what kept us from executing your soldiers when we captured them. Mercy is what allows you to live long enough to face trial instead of dying in the ruins of your empire. But forgiveness? She gestured again to the survivors in the gallery. Forgiveness must be earned. It cannot be demanded. It cannot be taken by force, and it cannot be granted to those who feel no remorse for their actions. The gavel came down with finality. War Prime Thexlar, this court finds you guilty on all charges. You are sentenced to life imprisonment on a world where you will spend every day working to repair the damage you have caused. You will help rebuild the cities you destroyed. You will tend the gardens you burned. You will care for the children you orphaned. You will live with the consequences of your choices every day for the rest of your life. And maybe, if you truly learn what it means to serve others instead of yourself, you might finally understand the difference between mercy and justice. Admiral Lisa Carter watched the proceedings from her flagship, the UES Justice, as it orbited the reconstructed colony of New Haven. The memorial wall now bore 2 million names, each one carved in stone that would last forever. Below each name was a simple inscription, "Remembered by those who do not forgive." Captain Ryan Bell approached with reports from across the former Zephyrian Empire. The last of their military installations has surrendered unconditionally. General Marcus Johnson reports that all slave worlds have been fully liberated. The Galactic Council is demanding negotiations for what they call the restoration of order. Carter nodded without looking away from the memorial. "Tell the Council that order has been restored.